Welcome to RetroCember here on the Game or Die channel. My name is Ryan Moore, and oh man, we're playing one of my favorites today. We're celebrating all month long the old classic retro games, and this year we're talking about Nintendo 64. So every day in the month of December, we're playing a new Nintendo 64 game. Every video, every day is a new one. And today's, oh man, this is like one of my favorites. This is WCW/NWO Revenge, the second game in the sequel from AKI, the developers, where they basically were wrestling games. Like, all they made was wrestling games on Nintendo 64, and they're all kind of locked to it, which is weird too. Like, this series never went anywhere else. It was strictly solely Nintendo 64. We got WCW versus NWO World Tour, WCW versus /NWO Revenge, which is the one we're playing today. Then they went to the WWF brand and they made WWF WrestleMania 2000. And then the last one they made, which was in the most popular one, WWF No Mercy, because they kind of kept adding new layers to the game. We'll talk about that. Let's just get started with the game, shall we? Okay, so again, made by AKI, and oh, this intro, when I was a kid, this intro pumped me up so much. I was so excited. It's got the weird little trail thing going on with this first portion, but it's so good. So we got a trucker, driving on maybe an icy highway or something in Atlanta, Georgia in 1998. And he's driving along. We got those weird trails for the graphics. It's a stormy night. We got a little bit of lightning. And as he's driving by, there's these tombstones in the road that catch fire, because that's a normal thing that you see. And then a flash of lightning and a man with a baseball bat and a trench coat that looks like the Crow, which is our main man, Sting. He's got Sting on his left-hand side, tombstone, and right-hand side, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And this is where it kicks off, and the audio is really good. The music is phenomenal here. We got Hogan with the NWO Championship World Belt. We got Wolfpack NWO with Kevin Big Sexy Nash, and then Miss Elizabeth, who's hot. And, oh man, we got the NWO Big Papa Pump, Eric Bischoff, WCW Monday Nitro, Goldberg with a spear, DDP, oh, it's so good. Macho Man Randy Savage, oh yeah. This is my childhood right here. I was a big wrestling fan, which is why it's one of my favorite N64 games. But this game came out at like the peak of wrestling. 1998-99 was the pinnacle. Before WCW rebranded and went with their Millennium roster and everyone started to kind of flounder in the creative decisions of wrestling, this WCW with, oh man, Perry Saturn, Chavo Guerrero Jr., Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holes, Raven, Big Papa Pump, obviously, La Parka with his silly dances, Chris Benoit, Conan, Roddy Piper, Juventud Guerrera, and Eddie Guerrero, Ultimo Dragon, Yuji Naka, Buff the Stuff Badwell, Kidman, Juventud, Raven again. Like, again, I could just pick off every single person. Glacier and Goldberg. Oh my gosh, we're gonna go through the roster as well. But this whole intro, Scott Hall, rest in peace. Oh man, so good. And then you got Wolfpack Sting, right, with the red and black. I'm so glad I was able to go and see Sting wrestle one last time, because that was awesome. And then, all right, Hogan does his poses like he normally does. Hulks up in front of Wolfpack Sting. And then we get this weird title card that you don't see in the game at all anywhere else. Oh, man. Just that intro alone should pump you up. It pumps you up, right? It's so good. Oh, it's so good. All right. Rumble Pack supported. We talked about Rumble Pack with the Star Fox 64 playthrough. That was a lot of fun. So let's just go through an exhibition, a single match, and then maybe we'll do a tag match after. And then, so what was really cool about this one is you could pick all the different venues. You had Monday Nitro, and then a bunch of pay-per-views sold out, which they only did a couple times. Super Brawl, which was, yeah, it was okay. I loved Bash at the Beach. I think that is still one of my favorite entrances, venues, pay-per-view events. Halloween Havoc was also a really cool one, especially around this time. They did a good job with Halloween Havoc. And then you had Starrcade, which, not the best title, but it was like kind of their end cap for the year, and something always big happened at Starrcade. We're gonna go with, let's go with Bash at the Beach. So we're gonna do me versus the CPU, and now we get to go through the roster. And man, this is like one of the best parts about these games, is going through the roster of each stable that they call it. So we got the original white NWO. And so this is kind of weird. NWO was just a couple guys, you know, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. And then it kind of ballooned into, you know, this big, big faction. And then they started having infighting and broke off into NWO Wolfpack, or Red as well. So with the originals and then the later additions for NWO White, we got Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Paul White, or also known as Big Show. When he was in WCW, he was known as the Giant. Brian Adams. Then we got Scott Hall, one half of the Outsiders. Scott Hall, then Kevin Norton, which he was in the NWO original, you know, kind of like the original expansion for a little bit, and then he went over to Japan and wrestled. Then we got Buff the Stuff Bagwell. I just actually watched the Dark Side of the Ring with him, and that was really interesting hearing about all that he went through. Crazy, crazy stuff. Eric Bischoff, which was really weird that he was like a wrestler in this game, because he was more of the owner, you know, kind of the manager and everything like that. But he did, you know, do a lot of bumps and some events and things too. Then we got Scott Steiner, and this is when he broke off from his brother. They were a tag team known as the Steiner Brothers, and Scott Steiner cut his hair, bleached it, and then he got super jacked. Obviously steroids, right? And he did the big Papa Pump, where he would flex and then kiss his weird giant muscle that he had in the middle of his bicep. And then Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, also rest in peace. One of the bummer things about going through all this stuff is you see so many of the wrestlers who have passed away over the years. Just in here, right here, I can't remember if Brian Adams is still alive or not. I honestly can't remember. He was never a big, you know, a big guy in WCW for me. Scott Hall has passed away. Buff Bagwell was on the verge for a while, but it seems like he's doing better, which is great, thanks to DDP. And then Kurt Hennig also passed away. Just in this one stable, one screen, we've already got 2 people who have passed away. Then we got NWO Red, or the Wolf Pack. And it starts off with Kevin Nash, who was the other part of the tag team, the Outsiders, with Scott Hall, or the originals of NWO. And he was also known as Big Sexy, and I always loved him. He's super tall. He's here at 7'1", and he would go over the top rope with his front leg. Like, so he, instead of going through the ropes in the top and middle section, he would just go over it with his legs. And I always thought that was awesome. That's what I always tried to do. Whenever I would do entrances, or whenever I walk over like rope sections of stuff, I always do the Kevin Nash, go one leg over and then the other one, saying, hey, I'm big and tall. I'm Big Sexy, right? Then this was the big one. when Wolfpack was created, there was this whole feud with NWO White and Red, and they were both trying to get Sting to convert to their side and ditch WCW. And so Sting did this whole thing where he's like, I'm going to, tell you which side I side with. And he originally came out with it was a t-shirt that was NWO White, and Hogan and Giant are all there, chanting and celebrating that Sting went over to their side. And then, they're all facing the crowd. Sting rips his shirt, and it's Wolfpack red. And then he starts beating up Hogan and stuff. Oh, man, it was great. So we got Sting. Then we got the total package, Lex Luger, or in old school WWF, the narcissist Lex Luger, or the Lex Express. And that was fun. And then Macho Man, Randy Savage. Oh, yeah. Macho Man has always been my favorite. He's been my favorite wrestler of all time. He was so influential for me. Back when I was a kid, I would always love Slim Jims just because I have a lifelong love of Slim Jims solely because of Macho Man Randy Savage. And then we had Conan, or K-Dog. I honestly hated Conan when I was a kid, but I have a better appreciation for him now. But his catchphrases, his very Mexican, in your face, where he would do his whole chant in Spanish. It didn't rub me the wrong way. It was just something that wasn't interesting to me. And then I loved it when Disco Inferno and would try to get him to be tag team partners or something. And then they started feuding, and then they made a whole big, oh my gosh, I know I'm going on a rant here, but they made this whole intro music video. Conan made a music video for his entrance song, and then Disco Inferno actually parodied it and did this whole fake music video making fun of Conan. Oh my gosh, it was one of the funniest things. It was great. Then I'm surprised they actually had this, because by the time the development finished and this game released, Raven's Flock, which was another little small staple, was gone. It was totally destroyed at this point. And that's kind of the bummer part of game development with, licenses or weekly shows or whatever. They're always playing catch up. And Raven, which was one of my favorite wrestlers as well. I don't know why. He had the grunge look. His entrance music was Even Flow, or was Pearl Jam. And then his finisher, the DDT, was called Even Flow. So the whole 90s grunge aesthetic. I loved Raven. He had his manager guy, Lodi, which I always hated. I hated Lodi. He was weird. He wore the hot pant leather pants and stuff. Just looked weird. I always liked Riggs, and so it was interesting watching the Dark Side of the Ring episode with Buff Bagwell. He talks about Riggs because they were tag team partners and stuff, and I had no idea about that. And then Riggs was doing really bad several years ago. He was about to kill himself, and Raven was basically oh, dude, you need to come help, come to DDP's house. DDP we'll talk about in a second. And he totally got him clean, and he was, homeless. He's got a place to live, and so he's doing a lot better now, and it's because of DDP, which we'll talk about in a second. Then we got Sick Boy. I was never really into Sick Boy, or never really watched him. Reese was huge, and I think Reese was either the disciple or Reese I think Reese is Hogan's nephew, Hulk Hogan's nephew or cousin or something like that. And then we have Billy Kidman, and I love Billy Kidman. He had the 7-year itch. He was always this weird, dirty character. He was just dirty. He was always scratching himself and stuff. And when he moved over to WWF/WWE, he became a really influential trainer, which is really cool. So he's a lot more behind the scenes after he moved over to WWE, but super cool. I always liked Kidman. Then we got the WCW roster, which we got Rowdy, Roddy, Piper. Go check out They Live if you haven't. That is a phenomenal movie with Roddy Piper as I have come here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum, which is what we got from, that's the line that they took and used in Duke Nukem, right? So I always love that. And then we have DDP, and let's just talk about DDP for a second. Diamond Dallas Page. He showed up late in his life. You know, he was like 40 plus when he started wrestling, and he was a bouncer. And I think it was Kevin Nash who got him into wrestling and said, hey, come on and do some wrestling. You'll make some great money. And he got injured. That's why he's got like the ribbed up, or the taped up ribs in this skin. But afterwards, he's always been a really big health nut. He has the DDP yoga program, which is to help people, you know, get in shape. I did it for a while and I was doing really good. I really liked it. And then he's helped so many wrestlers on the verge of dying turn their lives around. Most famously, Jake the Snake Roberts, who just was in a really dark, bad place, and he's completely turned his life around. Same thing with Buff Bagwell, Scotty Riggs, and then also more famously too, Scott Hall, before he passed away a couple years ago. Scott Hall was always doing really, really bad, and then he went to DDP to kind of, you know, get some help, and he was doing so much better at that time. It was great. But I think Scott Hall kind of backslid a little bit, and that's why he ended up passing. I don't remember. Then we got Bill Goldberg, and he's a pretty interesting one. He had the streak in WCW where he was like 151 matches and no losses, so that was crazy. Really built up. Bret the Hitman Hart, you know, famously with the Montreal Screwjob in WWF, moved over to WCW, and he kind of got stomped in WCW. They didn't do anything good with him. Goldberg and him have a really big famous feud where he basically got a concussion from Goldberg from not doing some moves correctly, and so he's always kind of had a chip on his shoulder because of that. And then Chris Benoit, which unfortunately passed away as well. Due to suicide/murder. Like, that was a really rough one. If you ever hear people talk about Chris Benoit, it's always in hushed tones because he suffered a lot of brain damage from doing his move where he would do headbutts continually to people. And so he would do a ton of headbutts, and then one day he, you know, upped and killed his family and then murdered himself. And that was really, really rough on like the entire wrestling world and just in general too. Like, that's a terrible thing to happen. So people really don't like talking about him. I like talking about Chris Benoit from this era where he was still wrestling. He was totally fine. Everyone loved him back when, you know, he was totally fine. But that brain damage really messed up his mind. He was known as the Crippler, and he was just a really, really crazy good athlete. It is such a bummer that all that stuff happened. Then we have the other part of the Steiner Brothers tag team. Rick Steiner, I think it was the dog-faced gremlin. And once his brother split from that tag team, they didn't do a whole lot of good stuff with him. They did a really weird thing that tied in with Chucky from the Child's Play series, where Chucky was an actual living being in the WCW world. It was weird. Fit Finlay, which I never liked, but actually he's been a really big influence in the world of behind-the-scenes training and all that stuff. And then Booker T, which had a huge run in WWE once WCW got bought out. A lot of these wrestlers went over to WWF, and they did super good. Some of them did really good, some really bad. Booker T was one of those that did really, really good. He then went into announcing, then went into retirement and did Hall of Fame. He's still an announcer for like some big pay-per-view matches and stuff, so he's still around. Then we have Saturn, Perry Saturn, which was part of Raven's flock, but then kind of did his own thing, became a singles competitor. And he did really good too. Saturn was crazy. I always was weirded out that he had like earrings on his eyebrows, and I always thought that was super dangerous to wrestle, like with earrings in your eyebrows, like metal so close to your eye. But as far as I know, nothing ever happened to him. And then we got Disco Inferno. Disco Inferno was one of my favorites. He was just a goofy, fun character, and basically Disco Inferno, like I said, did that weird thing with Conan. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Jim the Anvil Neidhart, part of the Hart Foundation back in WWF. He went over to WCW along with British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Davey Boy Smith, British Bulldog, and Jim Neidhart were all the core members of the Hart Foundation, which was like this big wrestling dynasty. They did not do well in WCW at all. Like that whole faction. It was the early 90s transitioning into late 90s where the Attitude Era and everything was like happening. And they just didn't do well. They were more family friendly, very clean cut, at least, without the steroid stuff. And they just didn't do well, which was a bummer. I always hated Glacier, but I think he did very good behind the scenes as a trainer as well. Meng, who was also known as Haku, back in WWF, and then Van Hammer, another, I think, Ravens Flock member, but I can't remember. He kind of disappeared after that. Then we got Yuji Naka, which was kind of just a Japanese kind of technical wrestler. Didn't really do a whole lot. And Larry Zbyszko's in here for whatever reason, but he was a commentator at this point. So it was weird to see him as a wrestler when he was just a commentator. Then we have Barbarian as well. He was always usually tagged up with Meng. And then La Parka. La Parka is a really big lucha libre wrestler, and he does this infamous dance that I always thought was stupid, but again, as I grew up, I really enjoyed it. And then Stevie Ray, which is Booker T's brother, who got into it, and they were a tag team, the Harlem Heat, for a long, long time. And then something happened where Stevie Ray just kind of like, at least in the show, he went off the deep end. He had real big issues with Booker T. They broke up. And then you didn't really see Stevie Ray after that. And I don't know actually what happened in real life, but that's kind of what happened in the show. Oh my gosh, I forgot how many people are in here. We got to go through this because we got to actually play the game, right? Then we got Lionheart Chris Jericho, who is just phenomenal, especially at this time. He was so good. He was the cruiserweight. That division really took off in WCW. Eric Bischoff brought in all these guys from Japan and Mexico, and they were doing these super high-flying stunts, very technical wrestling, and it was so well done that all these people did really, really well in WCW. Chris Jericho, when he jumped ship and went to WWF and became Y2J, Chris Jericho, he did even better somehow, and man, he was a main eventer for pretty much his entire run. Eddie Guerrero, again, rest in peace. Man, Eddie Guerrero was awesome. Again, another high flyer, cruiserweight, lucha libre style wrestler. Then you have Psychosis. I believe he was lucha libre as well. Then Rey Mysterio Jr., which I think we can all know and agree, Rey Mysterio Jr. is probably one of the most well-known lucha libre wrestlers, if not the most well-known. Then Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds, which feuded with Chris Jericho infamously, where Chris Jericho would do these promos like having a list and naming off all the holds that Chris Jericho does that is better than Dean Malenko. And then Juventud Guerrera, another wrestler from Mexico. Ultimo Dragon, which I thought he was good, but I just wasn't interested in him. I didn't like the mask. I always like seeing the people's expressions, the wrestlers' expressions. Then we have Chavo Guerrero Jr., which was the nephew of Eddie Guerrero in real life and in the show. And Chavo went off the deep end in the show. Like he had this weird personality split where he would run around with a toy horse, like the stick, where you would ride it like a little kid. And he called his horse Pepe, and he would have these weird mental breakdowns. It was great. And then Alex Wright, Das Wunderkind, and he was a German technical wrestler, and he would do this weird dance. And oh my gosh, him and Disco Inferno did a tag team. They were called the Dancing Fools by the commentators and stuff, and they were awesome. I love, genuinely, no ironic love, Alex Wright and Disco Inferno. They bring a smile to my face every time I think about them because they just made me happy. They were just goofy, fun characters. And this is where we get into the kind of fake stables. AKI Man, Shogun, Executioner, Dr. Frank, which is like a Frankenstein, Jekyll, which I think might be someone real, and My Inca Boy also might be real, but they were like Japanese, wrestlers. Hakana, Kim Chi, Drake Ken, Frykowski, Ming Chi, Hanzo Man. Those were all stables that basically did not do well. So we got to play the game, right? We're going to play as Macho Man Randy Savage, and we are going to battle. Let's battle Hogan. That's a classic match, right? The mega powers. No limit, will pin, no submissions, no TKO, no rope breaks, no quick match, no DQ, and no interference. Man, that was a long intro. I'm sorry, but man, when you play these games, you got to go through the roster because that was like a huge deal. One of the things that I love about Macho Man is he does his taunt, special taunt when you hit the stick, and he does the "ooh yeah." Watch. Oh yeah. They actually use a "ooh yeah" audio clip of Macho Man, and I love that. And then you've got Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So if you keep going, why is he called Hollywood Hogan? When he went to WCW and he went and formed the NWO, he actually changed his persona. He was a good guy normally, and then he changed into Hollywood Hulk Hogan, which was a bad guy. And so that was his bad guy persona. So what's really interesting about this game is, number one, with this series, you don't use the joystick or the analog stick. You use the D-pad to move around. The joystick is only for the taunts and specials. So there is grappling, which you do with the A button, which you can do a quick grapple, and then you hit the B button. So you can either quick grapple or hold A and do a long grapple. So that kind of sets you up for some different types of movesets. There's a ton of different movesets, and it depends on three factors actually. Number one, is it a quick grapple or a long grapple? Number two, after you quick or long grapple, do you quick press or long press the B button, which is like the punch and kick button? And then do you couple that quick or long B button press with a directional pad movement, up, down, left, or right? And all of that will tell you which moveset you're using. So it really did help to stick with a main character. You main a character in this fighting game, basically. And when you do that, then you start learning movesets. You learn which move is which character and directional thing is gonna make the character do what you want. And that's why I lost hundreds of hours in this game over the course of my life. This is my favorite wrestling game of all time. It is slower and more methodical than something like Here Comes the Pain or SmackDown on PlayStation. I never got into the SmackDown series. And you could always Irish whip everyone by doing a grapple and then down and down C, or just the down C. Or you can throw them out and then climb the turnbuckle and then do a flying elbow, and he missed it. So let's get Hogan out there, and then up C button. Up C, there we go. You can pick things out of the audience. So different weapons. I got a trophy in this case. Normally I would always try to get like a baseball bat or a chair. Like I always kind of just wanted chairs. But you get like chairs, those like metal staircases and things like that. Okay. Let's kind of beat Hogan up a little bit more before we start trying to actually finish this match. And sometimes you won't get anything, you know? It always depended on the character, too, because if you're a good guy trying to get weapons, they try to match that with the show. So, like, they don't want you... Oh, shoot. Oh, okay. They don't want good guys going into the crowd and, you know, using weapons. So if you're a good guy character in this game, you usually don't get weapons. Macho Man kind of straddled the line a little bit, so you'll see like him get some things every once in a while. Yeah, we're messing up Hogan. Now, I turned off like all the disqualification stuff, so if I... low blow with that weird bell sound. I always love that bell sound. And that too, when he just gets knocked out by the turnbuckle post. Flying elbow. Oh my gosh, seriously? Okay, let's get back in the ring. So normally, if we stood outside the ring, a 10 count would happen. So 1, 2, 3, and if the ref would get to 10 counts, the person on the outside at 10 counts would get disqualified. I'm trying to actually get him in the ring. There we go. And I turned off the disqualification. I turned off the 10 count. So if I used a weapon normally, I would get disqualified. If I was outside the ring too long, I would get disqualified. We can also... Okay, here we go. So if you do a long... I got a special. There we go. I was never a fan of Macho's special, unfortunately. But it's this... There we go. At least we got that. So we're gonna do a... Oh, man. Okay. So you got your spirit meters on the bottom bar, and as you do well, as long as you taunt and stuff, you'll build that up. And when it starts blinking, if you do a taunt, you'll get that special blinking. And it's a certain timed amount, I think is what, like 30 seconds or 15 seconds. And you get basically 1 or 2 specials off of that. There we go. And those just do major damage to your opponent. And that kind of also sets you up for wins, pinning, and stuff like that too. So that was always really cool. Unfortunately, and those were always the finishers, right? The finishers, like if you were The Rock, you would do the people's elbow, or Stone Cold, you would do the stunner, stuff like that. Macho's finisher was always the flying elbow drop, which I'm trying to get Hogan to drop down. Hogan's kind of building his strength back up. He's kind of hulking up a little bit here, see? There's no way. And now he's got his special that he's about to get. Let's see if we can make sure that he doesn't get that by just kind of spamming little quick drops and things. There we go, cool. Oh man, he's going for the low blows today. See, he was too far. Oh, jeez. Oh, he hit me and broke me open. You see that kind of like special animation where I check my face, like I put my hand to my face? That means I got busted open. That means blood is dripping down my face now. Now, because Macho has like a bandana and sunglasses, you don't see that. But if he didn't have those, you would actually see that. There we go. Oh, man. I like hitting the elbow drop and then having him drop down. Dude, he's hulking back up again. There we go. Yeah. Give up. I know know you can't really see it because I'm in the screen, but there's this weird cartoon ref that shows up, and I thought that was going to be so cool when I would watch this, or I would look at the previews for this in Nintendo Power magazine. I was so excited, but unfortunately, it doesn't really do a whole lot. In later games, they actually had a referee, you know, an actual referee character. Okay, let's flip them and pin. Oh, we got a 2 count. Okay, we'll get it. Come on. And there's so many button combinations, and I'm kind of trying to do a lot, but because I don't remember a lot of them, it is a little bit weird. But this is great, and you got the managers on the outside that can interfere if you were a different... Oh, we got a 2 count still. Okay. There we go. Okay, I think we're good. I think we'll get our special. Here we go. Got our special, and then we'll knock him down. We'll climb to the rope and do the flying elbow pin. That should be it. And so you can see these matches go on for a long time. No. Oh, we lost it. Okay, body slam, elbow drop, pin. Oh no! It was too far away. Oh, that would have been great. Here we go, suplex. Yeah, good old vertical suplex, man. I miss vertical suplexes. I used to do vertical suplexes. I could never do that, though, where you would hold them up straight up in the air, but I used to do vertical suplexes all the time with my friends in backyard when we would backyard wrestle. Man, this is going on way longer. Maybe it's because it's Hogan. You know, he's got really good stats in the game, which you don't see. You don't see the stats, but they're there for sure, 100%. Hit it. Yes. Pin. Oh my gosh, he just immediately gets up. Let's just pin him. There it is. Yeah. All right. Oh yeah. Indeed, Macho Man. Rest in peace, right? Yeah. Macho was always super cool. All the crazy, you know, tassels and frills, the just crazy persona. It was so cool. And then you got Miss Elizabeth out there in the on the side of the ring, his real life wife. Okay, well, man, that was fun. And then you got like scoring, which never actually really mattered. There was no point to the scoring at all, but they tried to tie it in. Okay, well, that's going to do it for today's episode of RetroCember, and today is Christmas Eve, so I want to wish everyone a hopefully wonderful and merry and happy Christmas. Oh, man, I love Christmas. It's my favorite time of year. Sharing it with everyone. If you do join the Discord, I will give you a free game. That's my Christmas gift to you. So if you want to join the Discord, the links are down below in the video description. Check it out. I try to have super fun stuff. We got a 24/7 podcast voice channel where you can just jump in there and listen to podcasts that I do, the Game or Die podcast, which is looping 24/7. So there's always something interesting to listen to, even if you jump in there for like 5 minutes. Also, we got the classic stream channel. So if you jump into that one, it's all these streams that I do on a nightly basis. I stream pretty much every night at 11 p.m. Central on Twitch and YouTube and Rumble and Kick and X. And I've archived all of those, and they're just playing 24/7. So again, if you just want something to kind of have on in the background or whatever, that's a great way to watch. And then also, obviously, the Discord where we actually have fun conversations. In the new year, I'm going to be giving away a lot more games than I did this year, but we gave away a ton of games over the course of the year, and then we're not stopping. All right, so Tomorrow for Christmas, I'm going to do another super special game for RetroCember, but that's today's. I hope you have a wonderful Merry Christmas. Take care. God bless you. And Merry Christmas. Bye.